Morning, everyone. Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great day, a great weekend. Made some beautiful gains as always. Today, I'm gonna go ahead and read two sections that coincide with one another quite well, and I'm just gonna put them together because they match one another. They complement each other to substantiate the message of today's video, right? So the first one is section 341, which is titled "The Advantage of Ignorance." Quote, someone has said that in his childhood he experienced such a contempt for the caprices and whims of a melancholy temperament that until he had grown up and had become a middle-aged man, he did not know what his own temperament was like. It was precisely a melancholy temperament. He declared that this was the best of all possible kinds of ignorance, end quote. And so the second one is section 357, which is titled Moral Mosquitoes. Quote, those moralists who are lacking in the love of knowledge and who are only acquainted with the pleasure of giving pain have the spirit and the tediousness of provincials. Their pastime, as cruel as it is lamentable, is to observe their neighbor with the greatest possible closeness, and, unperceived, to place a pin in such a position that he cannot help pricking himself with it. Such men have preserved something of the wickedness of schoolboys, who cannot amuse themselves without hunting and torturing either the living or the dead, end quote. And the reason I said both of them is because they're going right very well with what I've been reading from Epictetus, right? And it's the use of impressions, and not even that, is the innate arrogance contained with each and every one of us, right? The guy, like the first section when he's talking about a man who looked down on those who had contempt for those with a melancholy sort of temperament, later on realized that the reason I had that sort of contempt is because he also had that sort of temperament. And something that's pretty obvious amongst us humans is that we don't like to see the reflection of our own faults, right? When we see those faults projected by another individual, we start growing angry and resentful because now we can't escape it. Now the lie and the sham of our psyche and what we call good, the facade has now withered away. It's now right in our face, right? We're now up close to this ideal, this projection of good. And it goes with arrogance because, we all have the same faults. We all have the same instincts. And given the opportunities, we probably project them in the same way. Like the moral mosquitoes who look down with contempt or look, sometimes with envy at those who have power, or those who project power in their own way. And then it comes from a sense of envy, right? Like, we're never really, not even that. It's just like, I think the main thing with, especially tied with stoicism, is that, we do the same shit given the appropriate circumstance. And Epictetus talks about this, like in the case with the whole Iliad and the Odyssey. And, he was making the case that, people say it was a bad thing for Achilles to do this, or Agamemnon to do this, or for Menelaus, or whatever the fuck the guy's name is, to start a war over a woman that got stolen from him. It's all decisions and it's all actions. And then people deplore that sort of thing, call it evil, call it good, the actions perpetrated by another individual who, like I said, is just enacting the same compulsive impulse, like the same instincts as you are, in just a different way. In a way that is correct for them, but is incorrect for you. But then we are arrogant to believe, or we always walk around with this arrogance or this delusion that our sense of right is universal, and what we see as the good thing is something that everyone else should follow. Or if we look at someone who committed a deplorable act, why is it deplorable when given the opportunity you do the same thing? So how hypocritical can you possibly be, right? And it's like those, like I said, who see, like, it's like people who complain nowadays of those in government and how corrupt they are and how they use shit to stay in power and this and this and this and this and if given the right circumstances, they do the right thing. But what the fuck is the right thing? Because people who are who have achieved power and want to retain it, to them it is the right thing to retain power, because that's a natural course of things. You never want to let go of power. That's stupid. And what was the whole point? Like the whole democratic notion that once you get all, like once you have power for a certain amount of time and then you leave and you're satisfied. Like that's not how the human condition works. We always try to retain a sense of influence, right? And you know, it's just like, oh, if I was in power, I'd do things differently, and you know, history would say the contrary, right? Like how many governments have been toppled by those who consider themselves to be righteous human beings, but then they commit the same deplorable acts because they have the best intentions at heart. The other guys didn't have the best intentions, but they did. But we do. We know what's best. Even though we're still murdering, we're still lying, we're still ostracizing, we're still performing methods of repression and censorship and things of that nature. But it's because our ideal is correct, not yours, our ideal. You know, and it's just this constant power struggle, right? Like, I guess that's why people always look down on, like, you know, sometimes postmodernism, because we always see things in that way of a circumstance of power. And sometimes people see it as a deplorable thing, because then you become far too cynical. But, you know, to go all the way beneath is necessary, right? And you know, it's always quite comical, because when you look at it from that perspective, it just makes you see how like, it makes me realize more and more that, you know, all our claims are really very superficial and very relative and very self-interested. Even our notions of what good and evil is, it's always in relation to us. It's never for some altruistic measure. But even then, it's just like, you know, you want to suck the blood out of those other people and call them evil and call them stupid, you know. And you know, it's like, you know, like that, there is that sense of wickedness and evil from that sense of happiness and power, and being able to justify why this other person is wrong and you're right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is, like, that happiness becomes powerful, because you really do, like, and that's why, you know, pride does get in the way when facts run to the contrary of your beliefs, but you stand firm to your beliefs even against all evidence to the contrary, because your pride is now attached to that. Your power and your happiness is directly tied to this delusional grandeur that you have. You know, we all walk around with thinking that we're somehow different from everybody else, when we're just enacting the same instincts with the appropriate circumstance, with what circumstance and what our environment has provided for us, what we are capable of, the manners in which we are capable of projecting these impulses, given the current circumstances of our surroundings, right? And, you know, given the chance, we'd all be power-hungry fucks. Given the chance, we'd all be tyrannical. Given the chance, we'd all be autocratic, because we already walk around with that sort of behavior, but it hasn't been projected in such an extreme degree because we don't have the avenues and we don't have the capabilities to go to that level, right? And there's always that severance, and that distance is what is required for us to continue to live in this delusion that we are the epitome and we are the standard of righteousness and goodness, and we know what it is. You know, most people are ignorant as fuck and dumb as fuck, but they somehow know what is right. They somehow know what is wrong. They somehow know that this is the wrong thing to do. But how do you know this? You know, that people say, like, you just have an instinct to know what's good. That's stupid. Because then you go right back to the whole thing that it's not universal then. Because what is good for one people, it's not going to be good for another. You know what I'm saying? One people may think a life of sedation, a life of of ease, of ingenuity, or whatever is good, but then other people will see that as feminine, as deplorable, as immoral. To be martial and to conquer and to be brutal is a good thing. And then how can you possibly make those distinctions? How can you possibly say your way is a good way and theirs is wrong when both of you are prospering, for example? You know, we're so quick to demonize based on our own bullshit perceptions and what is convenient for us, right? Our preconceptions come from the sense of utility of what we can twist in reality to justify our own meager existence. You know, we always want to walk around with that pride and all that. You know, I think it's one of the effects of Platonism for the people is that we all walk around thinking that we hold the truth in our hands when we never even had to work for it. You know, and that's a point made by Epictetus, one of the very last things that I read of in his discourses is, you know, like when someone calls you immoral, or when someone calls you a heretic, or one calls you stupid or ignorant or toxic or any of these things, why would I pay attention to that? You know, it's like a musician. Why would a musician pay attention to a rookie that can't tell the different strings when you play the different string? Are you going to pay attention to this? Like if you're a professional musician and you can, are you going to listen to a guy who can't even tell the difference between an E and a D string on a fucking guitar? Like the tone? No, you're going to think they're stupid. And you're going to be like, well, your opinion doesn't matter because you have no weight. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Right? But yet we always like go around, first of all, projecting our ignorance, thinking it's right? Like, you know, we know what's right or wrong, but we never really dug into it. Like, what homework have you done in regards to that? And then at the same time, it's like, you know, you can flip and be like, why should I pay attention to what the fuck they're saying? Like, who are you? What expert? Who did you learn from? Where did you go to school for? What did you read to make you an authority as to what is right and wrong? You know, people, and that's something that we have to take into consideration, even from people that are striving for the betterment of everybody. You know, those who came from the bottom and are twisting, like communists, for example, people who are utilitarians, so people who want universal basic income. Like, why is that the right thing to do for you? Why is that the right thing to do? When other people may say, hey, fuck everybody. No one said equality was supposed to be a given. You know, equality is not a given. The equality, even of chance, unfortunately, is not a given. You just have to do best with whatever situation you've been dealt with. You know what I'm saying? Like, this whole equality outcome bullshit and things of that nature, none of that is really a given. But we walk around with truths, or we walk around with those bullshit notions as truths in order to validate what we already have as preconceptions. Whatever, you know, the way that we want to act out our frustrations and be the good guys. And that's how we twist everything around, right? You always twist words, you always twist reality, and you always twist the circumstance in order to vindicate yourself and villainize the rest. And that's probably, that's the biggest problem with something like history, for example. That's why you have to take it with a grain of salt. You never are disinterested in your pursuit of knowledge. There's always an interest. There's always a reason why you're looking into things. Maybe it's to buttress whatever point you already had, or to figure something out, or to receive power because now you know more things. And the fact that your knowledge is somehow now connected to a feeling of greater and greater power, which is, well, I mean, what was the whole point of the Enlightenment, right? Knowledge is power. And that was a connection that was blatantly made. But you know, we all, like, you know, the gist is we always walk around with that arrogance for no reason. I mean, it's not for no reason, but, you know, arrogance and humility don't coincide well. Only intelligent people are humble because they are aware of what the limitations of their own perceptions are. Most people are ignorant, don't want to believe that. That's why there are people who are adamant or fervent believers in something that cannot broach any doubt. Because then it just throws everything into disarray. It throws their own heightened sense of arrogant power or understanding that no one else understands, right? That no one else gets because you're such an ardent believer. But it's so flimsily, it's built on such flimsy foundations that you can't even deal with any wind. That's why you have to close yourself off as much as possible, right? Like, no, any little doubt will rock the whole foundation into shambles. You know, it's gonna break everything down so quickly. You know, it's an interesting observation at all times. It's like when you look at someone making a speech or discoursing or anything like that, and they're projecting their notions of right and wrong and why they're doing these things. It's always good to ask, or it's always good to look beyond the layer, right? And they're always good to peel back more layers than what people usually do, which is superficial as fuck. You know, what's the intention and where are they going with this? But then you can also reverse engineer and be like, why is this notion arising? What are you trying to resolve? What, like, you know, go back, not go forward as to what this may lead to, but where did this all come from? And obviously that's the realm of psychology, right? The realm of, you know, what traumas are we projecting and things of that nature that I am not competent enough to speak upon too much. But it's always, you know, nice, you know, and as, you know, like I said, I always say, it makes it a little bit more cynical. But with humans, it's never that simple. We like to make it seem like it is, but we're not. And it's always something that I've found quite interesting, is that we all really do walk around thinking we know what's best, when, you know, our life and our pursuits will speak to the contrary in relations to how competent we are in that particular department, and being able to say what is right, what is wrong, concisely, decisively, you know, like a statement beyond reproach. And this is one of the essential delusions that we live with, you know, one of the that we have to walk around thinking that we know what's best, and looking down on those who are just the same as us, given, and then if we were in that same situation, we'd be the same, we'd be doing the same. You know, it's like people who clown others who live on the streets or anything like that. Oh, they made this bad choice, or they're doing this so stupid. Like, it's like those who comment on each other's fucking posts on Instagram, clowning each other. Oh, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. It's like, but you have to look at the perspective. It's like, if you're not going to be able to teach them, then shut the fuck up. Because at one point, you were there as well. You also thought that. You probably have your own delusions. You probably have your own dumbass ideas that you swear are right, but they're wrong. Right? We all live with that. So, you know, we're always being so hypocritical, judging one another and clowning one another, belittling one another, because we all have the same faults. Given the appropriate circumstance, we do the same shit, and we do the same shit anyways. We just don't like to think about that when we judge. You know, like, how many times have we made that same decision that we're judging right now? How many times have we done the same stupid choices, or it was the same stupid instinct, or the same agglomeration of instincts and drives and impulses all coming in together in an extreme way that causes you to go down this road of stupidity? You know, we've all done that. We've all made the wrong choices, or we've acted on the wrong impressions of our surroundings, as, you know, Stoics would like to say, or Epictetus is. You know, there is not much distinction. But people like to judge. People like to be arbitrators. That's why we invented something like hell, for example. There has to be that distinction between good and bad. We can't live in gradations. We have to live in extremes, because that's what makes sense for us. We don't like to ever think that we would ever be so deplorable or so evil, you know, but we probably would, because we're all like 99% the same. You know, it's like people who clown the Nazis or something, you know, giving them property. You'd do the same thing if you were in that same economic turmoil, in that same desperate situation in the 20s and 30s, in that hot political environment of explosion, worrying that your country is going to get taken over by a communist regime in Bavaria and shit like that. Like, who knows where you would have ended up? Who are you to say what they did? Like, obviously, you know, they ain't past the whole, it was obviously evil, but about the humans themselves, you don't know what made them do that. Oh, they're deplorable, they're evil pieces of shit, they're separate from society in some way, you know what I'm saying? So it's comical when we do those sort of mental gymnastics, I guess you could say, which we do all the time, really. But that is going to be all for today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. And I hope you all get to finish. I'm about to finish the last section. Because I'm almost done. Oh, yeah. I have like 10 pages left. No. I have 15 pages left before I finally get to book 5. What to do? But slowly and surely we'll get there. This is fucking amazing, man. I love this book. It's really good. So that'll be all for today. I hope you all, like as always, make beautiful gains. Beautiful gains. I just got a little second job, so your boy's gonna be making a little bit extra money. I'm still gonna try to keep this. I'm gonna be tired all the time. I'm aware of that, but I doing what is required, and I love that I am. I'm like of course this is self-interest, right? But I want to be uncomfortable and tired, knowing that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Not tired anymore because I'm drinking and acting like a fool, but I'm doing what is necessary and not complaining. Fuck those who leave. Fuck those who don't agree with you. Fuck those who complain. At the end of the day, all we have control of is our minds. And I'm starting to care less and less about the outside. And, people always say, I don't care what anybody thinks, which I'm going to talk about at some other point in time. About how we don't even live with our own conscience. We live with the conscience of others at all times, not even the conscious, our own self-conscious. We always think on our periphery in mind. With our periphery at the first order ring, instead of looking what's in front of us, we're always looking to the side. I mean, that's a pretty obvious observation given the current climate. But thanks to something like Stoicism and Nietzsche, that's a deadly combo, is to not give a fuck, to brush that sort of shit off. People want to excite those extreme emotions out of you because that's power. But once you stop giving a fuck, then they have lost all power and all inclination to really fuck with you, because there's nothing to gain from doing that. You know what I'm saying? So I love it. Thank you all. Like I said, I love you all. And until next time, peace.